Remember this cool Gibson prototype? The story thickens. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. In the late Henry J era, employees used to get the opportunity to buy guitars at special employee-only sales and/or auctions, and a lot of times those guitars are restricted to when they can sell them, and to how many they can buy. That is the backstory of this one, but it also helps make sense of our Les Paul. Another common theme with employee sale guitars is they typically don't come with a case unless they purchase it separately. So, even though this might be some sort of a Gibson USA gig bag, we are dealing with another unique custom shop prototype today. Look at that. It is nearly a twin to that Les Paul, but what is this? It's the modern double cut shape, which if you don't remember these things, let's fill you in. So it was summer of 2017 when they introduced the modern double cut standard and customs. Usually they had some pretty nice flame tops, but everyone was saying, that just looks like a PRS 22/24 knockoff. But in my opinion, I think it was more so Gibson trying to bring the Tak Matsumoto signature Gibson guitar to the US audience under a different name. However, in winter of 2018, they introduced a semi-hollow/chambered version, which we've documented a cool blue sparkle as well as the pink. And after that, these weren't really all that popular. Took a couple of years for Gibson to sell them all off, and now they're just kind of weird asterisks within the history of Gibson double cut models. And for that reason alone is why I kept this one in my personal collection, because it's just a weird oddity of Gibson history. But the modern double cut looked like this. They had the brand new, at that time, 2017 Apex Headcarve going for them, as well as 24 frets, and they're pretty cool with their eyebrow sound hole. So now you're probably wondering, what makes this one special? Well, it's staring you right in the face. It has another one of those freaky tailpieces that we saw on this prototype. Now, unfortunately, Gibson never ended up using those because they were deemed too expensive to manufacture, or it's just because they decided they didn't want to, who knows. The modern double cuts ended up using this bridge style, which I think is a big shame because on this video, most people were saying they really like this bridge design, but you're gonna notice the first one we looked at had brass saddles. Our new prototype does not have those. We'll have to see what material those might be made of on the workbench. Cost aside, I think they made a bad move. Having a unique bridge on the new Gibson guitar probably would have been a good selling point. But you can also tell that this red burst was definitely going to be a finish that was in their minds that they ended up not going with. But you're probably wondering, if that's got the same finish, same similar style bridge, might there be something going on with the back of the headstock? And the answer to that is yes. This also has the prototypical Apex Headcarve that was a Matthew Klein invention, which was a tribute back to very early Orville Gibson creations like on his mandolins and whatnot. So now that kind of changes how I think of this other Les Paul over here. It's not necessarily the Apex Headcarve prototype, it's just the Les Paul modern prototype. But we also learned about that in the review and demo. That's why I hate saying this is this, and this, because sometimes it takes some discovery of other things within the brand. It looks like they were pretty happy with their new headstock design before they ended up redoing it. Although personally, I would say I'm more of a fan of what they ended up with for the headstock. But you might have noticed this one is called prototype number 6. That's a lot in the prototype stages. So I do believe this to be a modern double cut prototype. It's not necessarily they're trying something new. They were trying everything new at this point. I suppose at the exact same time, this is labeled prototype number 2 and it's the Les Paul. Were they all part of the same series? Am I incorrectly assuming these were specific model prototypes rather than just the Apex Headcarve prototype that they did across a few different ones before they finally designed what they wanted? And the fact that this is number 6 and it was an employee-owned guitar, usually the way these things work is once one pops up, all the other ones start showing up if they were just holding on to them, waiting for their contract to when they can sell to expire. So I'm excited to see what other finishes might come about. We'll have to see if they changed out the pickups. The only other thing I noticed on this is we do not have fret nibs. However, I'm actually suspicious this guitar was refretted, because the nut has obviously been replaced on this. It was a clean job, but it doesn't have the typical finish over the edge. But let's do what we do best, my friends. Throw it on the workbench, take an individual look at its parts and specs to see if we can learn any more about this unique prototype. More surprises lurk inside, but it cleaned up very beautifully. So I took the neck pickup out and got a bit of a shock. 490R, but take a look at that date, 6/21/2013. What's our bridge look like? The usual pairing of a 498T with a matching 6/21/2013 date. So that can mean a couple of things. This guy's brazen enough to refret it and do a new nut. He's probably not that scared about changing out pickups. Or did these prototypes start a lot earlier than we thought they did? We'll have to take a look at our solder joints back here. But one other piece of trivia. If you've ever torn Gibsons apart, you might have seen wound by PS at one point in time. A viewer of the show told me he was going on a hunt to figure out what that means because nobody on the internet has ever posted an answer. And this viewer is in the Nashville area. He's got connections to all the big name stores and even some people that work at Gibson. And he was able to come up with the answer. PS is Vansery, Phansery, the initials of an employee. So there you go, it is kind of like the Seymour Duncan type pickups. We just need to celebrate Fan more. As far as our controls, master volume, master tone, readings within the circuit, 13.84 k ohms bridge, neck position, lucky 7s, middle position, 5.01. And the output jack is on the edge. But as far as our neck pickup cavity, we do have a long neck tenon in here and an interesting 6422. That might be a color code number. I'm not sure. Maybe somebody at Gibson that works there might know. The bridge pickup cavity doesn't give us too much of anything else. It looks like there might be an H or something. But typical late Henry J era quality. Splintery, buffing compound. And I like how you see the double staining along the edge. That's how they get that really exaggerated flame. I really like the way they've done this. I'm not normally a big fan of the super pinstripey flames, but this, it's almost like there's flames stacked on top of flames. That's how cool this one is. It's definitely got a nice belly to it. Now, onto our bridge setup. If you happen to have missed that last video, how this works is you have a post right here. You set the height adjustment as you want it. Then the bridge slides on. The top portion of the post comes off. And then you use that to secure the bridge into place. But I will say, this particular version of the bridge feels much lighter. And looking at the back, they just look like steel blocks or some other metal. I'm not really an expert when it comes to that. Maybe this was a different version that was a little bit cheaper for them to produce. I think I like the brass ones better. It breaks up the monotony and makes it even more different. So I'll have to see if this one has just as good sustain or not. But you also have adjustments on each side over here that can help you rock it back and forth, and your regular intonation screws right here. I feel it is important to note that I don't think the plating was as good on this one. You can see it's kind of bubbling in a couple of areas where there's string tension. The more and more I think about it, maybe the prototype number more so refers to the guitars that utilize this bridge. So when they decided not to use it, maybe that's when they decided, okay, let's redo our headstock volute to something different and then make the bridge and tailpiece traditional. Two-piece flame maple top, mahogany body. This one's solid. We've got the mahogany neck with the rosewood fretboard. Now, I very well could be wrong that this was refretted. Sometimes these modern guitars, they opt to make them modern and not put a nib over the edge. And it's not that uncommon for this era of brand new Gibsons to need a new nut. It's just, it seems so suspicious. But there is an area on the fretboard where maybe if they ripped the frets out, it might have chipped the board a bit. And in my opinion, these ends don't look like Gibson's usual quality. Not saying that this was a bad refret job, it just doesn't look like the way Gibson does unbound frets. And bam, I forgot about this on that Les Paul. It has a 25-inch scale length. So does this modern double cut. So that means the moderns were going to have a slightly extended scale length. Not by much, only a 1/4 of an inch, but it makes them different. Still looks like your regular 12-inch fretboard radius though. As far as neck dimensions, 1.69 inches nut width, 2.08 by the 12th. First fret nut depth, 0.92, and 0.96 at the 12th, so kind of a chunky C. Here's that neck profile at the first fret and the 12th fret. It's interesting just how extra rounded it is in there. It's almost like a U shape before you get to more of a C. Our truss rod cover is blank, white back. Truss rod itself is in perfect shape, and our headstock is fairly clean after being polished, with just a Gibson mother of pearl logo there. That was one thing that scared me when I was buying this is, was it refretted for a reason? Like, did this have a twist in the neck and it needed to be compensated for? The neck looks straight to me, but looking at it in this light, you can see there is a scratch on the headstock right there, which I remember the shop telling me about now. Then there's a couple of dings along the edge. And here's a bit more on how I know that the nut has been replaced. Gibson nuts originally have some sort of a lacquer over top of them, so when you replace them, sometimes you can get some finish chipping here, or you'll just notice there's no more lacquer here. But we do have some light chipping right here. Could have been from a guitar stand or just natural wear. But there's also some light finish checking where the binding ends and the neck truly begins. You can see a small finish
finish chip area right there because of that. The treble side has a very minor blemish like that too. And if you get it in the light just right, you can see a little bit of finish damage right here. Moving on to the backside. I don't see anything that makes this different from other modern double cuts. We've still got our cutaway right there. And our typical swooped heel design. I mean, you could also say it's semi-what reminiscent of a Gibson M3. Check out one of these videos if you don't know what that is. Pretty much Gibson's best super strat. I've always liked how they also have a thin binding in the cutaway effect so you can see the maple top exposed. You just have to have a translucent finish to see it. But what is the verdict for our pickups? I'm gonna go ahead and say they've been replaced. You can tell it's not the same solder quality as everything else, because the guy who was wiring this at the factory has these big blobs, and that has the big blob, but the pickups do not. And I don't remember seeing one of these tiny purple wires, so that might have been changed too. But I like how you can see the extreme figuring through the back. That's always a nice treat. But we've got a strap button right here, and at our top of the horn, here's our mahogany neck. It's got a couple of light impressions on it, like there is a ding right here. Other than that, just light scratches. And then we get to our Apex Headcarve prototype design. Now, the more and more I see it, the less offensive it looks to me. I think they just needed to change the middle finger aspect of it up here. And I think that's why we initially got to our spikier version. However, the increased mass all over here, I think they probably could have let that go and just let it be pointy up here. But regular Grover tuners on this one, non-locking. Prototype number 6. Since 6 showed up, maybe some of the other ones that may exist might show up and they're in a different color. So if you want to make an offer on this guitar, I'll hear you out, but I probably will not sell it until I find something similar to replace it. All said and done, it weighs 8 pounds, 3.8 ounces. Not too bad. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how it sounds. So far, it might be a placebo effect, but these steel saddles give it a really telly-like tone, especially acoustically. But it could also be that they did a stainless steel refret. I'm not really quite too sure how to tell unless somebody tells me. But that neck pickup's nice and juicy. Versus the bridge. Of course, the combination middle. Middle and neck's definitely where this one's at for me. Now that we know all about one of the modern double cut prototypes with a freaky bridge and a 25-inch scale length, what are my final thoughts on this thing? You know, had I not found that other Les Paul first, I probably would have been a lot more excited during this review and demo, but it's nice to kind of make sense and see just how many guitars actually got this special bridge. I wonder if they toyed around with using any other types of saddles. So far it seems we found a brass and some sort of a steel saddle, which definitely gave you different tones. But I've got to say, the 25-inch scale length works incredibly well with the modern double cut because you get just a little bit more space in between your pickups. That's the one downside, in my opinion, to the 24 fret double cut Les Paul standard. The additional 2 frets takes up where your neck pickup normally goes, so it kind of makes them feel a little bit crowded. So by making it a 1/4 inch longer, it seems like you got a little bit more space in between these pickups. I measured it real quick. It's 1.685 inches on the pink one and 1.72 on our red one. So it's not a huge difference, but it's enough that you actually do notice it while playing it. And maybe it's just because we don't have the bridge and tailpiece on it. It just makes the whole thing look different. I actually really like this version of the modern double cut, and I think Gibson should reconsider bringing these things out to the market, because last video people also seemed to like them and would be willing to pay a small premium for them. So Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed documenting this one with me today. If you're interested in being the next owner, you can talk to me about it. I'm still not 100% sure what I'm doing here, but I would like to find a different one of these prototypes and maybe a different color. So if you're a Gibson employee and you have a different one, feel free to let me know. But anyways, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.
If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day, and you might even enjoy this next one.